Okay, we'll call this meeting of the School Building Committee to order. Thank you all for joining us. Our first item on the agenda is the approval of the December 9 minutes. We have a motion to approve the December 9 minutes. Thank you, Chris McDebeau. Chris Kiefner will second. Any corrections or discussion on the minutes? Then all in favor of approving the minutes, give me a sign. Any opposed or abstentions? Okay, thank you. Then that brings us to our OPM update. Adam, I guess it'll be you.
Yep, that would be me. So let me just share my screen here. Okay, so should just be looking at the overall 2-month overlook schedule. So by and large, as you can see, the schedule is starting to get a little more colorful, a little more line items here as we start to extend into the new year, and as parts of construction open up and we move past just foundations and skeleton to starting to get more components to the building itself. By and large, for the next, as you can see, for the next month or two, it's still very heavily focused on wrapping up the last little bits of actual steel structure, your big beams and columns, and moving towards the deck elements and some of the exterior walls, and then subsequently to interior walls. At the request of, I think it was last meeting, it might have been Chris Kiefner, but regardless, there was a question for seeing how the certain elements are changing, whether they're taking a longer time or lesser time. So I've attempted to capture that with in conjunction with Al in terms of some of the activities might seem to take longer. So for example, geothermal piping and some of the roof decking, but then also some elements are shrinking in terms of how long they're anticipated to take. So for example, some of the decking in other areas and framing and sheathing some of the exterior walls are shrinking by some amount of days. So this is pretty typical with a construction of this size, is you'll have ability, and Newfield has the ability to allow certain areas of construction to grow and shrink and utilize the space and the time and the manpower if something's taking longer in one area versus another. So there are definitely trade-offs in various areas of the schedule. The two critical items right now, insofar as construction is concerned, are going to be the pouring of the concrete floor deck. So not the ones on the ground, but anything where there's 2 stories, that middle story, getting those concrete areas poured. And then also the metal roof deck that was the subject of some procurement delays. Those have, that's been delivered insofar as all the areas for the roofing, with exception of the one area of the gym, but we knew about that. But the areas that were the major concern for the schedule impact, those materials have been delivered. They're being installed as we speak. And the current projection for all the areas of that roof deck, based on available manpower, weather, et cetera, is that those should be done in the time frame that we were looking at. So again, it's something we're keeping an eye on over the next several weeks, but it's progressing, and we're not just waiting for material to show up on site anymore. So that's good. Any questions just in general about sort of the progress of the building, where we're at, where we're going for the next month or two?
Chris?
First, yeah, thank you very much, Adam, for doing that. It shows us how much more dynamic the whole thing is, the schedule is. And again, that's something I've been really impressed by, is how Al and Ray move things around and make progress continue. I'm wondering, are you going to be talking about some of these other issues? Well, actually, no. Let me ask you about the decking. There was concern about the decking and the temperature and so forth. Are we clear on that? Did we dodge that bullet? What's going on with that?
So I'll answer quickly, and then maybe Al can jump in with the nitty gritty. The weather, insofar as the pouring the concrete on the deck, is still something that's going to be a concern's not necessarily maybe the right word. Is you need to have a certain temperature in order to pour the concrete. And so that's what the focal point was in terms of tenting parts of the building and getting propane heaters to ensure that the slab itself maintains the required temperature regardless of what the weather is outside. And so currently, portions of Area B, for example, have some of the existing sheathing, the existing or the eventual studs on the exterior of the building already installed and tarping up and putting up plastic sheathing with some heaters going underneath, so that way that work can continue. So we're in New England, concrete gets poured in the winter all the time. It's just a matter of identifying the situations and adapting to it. Al, do you want to jump in on that?
Sure. So last week we did have a string of 3 days that were fairly mild, that we were able to get half of the decking poured on the main level of B, and that would be the southern portion of B. It was a full day pour. They started at 6:30 and went on till dark, so it was a good pour. We were able to get heat below, so we could heat the bottom of the deck through the weekend, and we tarped the top to keep the heat in, so the slab could cure properly. We have the other half ready to go. We have concrete scheduled for Wednesday and Thursday of next week on a will call. So either day, whichever one's better, we'll go ahead and pour the rest of that slab on that day. That's our really main concern, is getting the slab on decks done. We have the lower level tented in and heated. We have our permanent temporary heat units on site now, and they're running. So we'll be able to do slab on grades very soon. Within the next 2 weeks, we should have the slab on grade poured.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, other questions for Adam? Tony?
Is this the right time to ask about the geothermal piping?
That was something that Richard was going to address in his update. So it's coming.
I'll hold off.
Is there anything else? I can't see everyone on my screen.
Yeah, I don't see any other questions at the moment.
Okay. The only other item that I had for this portion was just in terms of sort of the tree buffer update. So that the removal itself was complete. I believe tomorrow the contractor's coming back to do a little bit of cleanup on the site, just to sort of they're going hot and heavy to get it all knocked out in one weekend. So now they're coming back to do the cleanup. And then just wanted to ping the committee insofar as the tree logs that were saved. We had 2 tree logs that were saved as part of the project, and they were put over to the transfer station. So memory escapes me as to who was sort of spearheading that, but just wanted to provide that update, and got a couple photos that we can send you just to get a sense of what's going on. And if you want to send those to the woodworker or whomever it is that might be transforming those into a project, we can certainly do that. So I don't know if, who's the point person on that one.
I think Tony had asked about that to say that, but beyond that, I don't know if we have.
I can send out the photos on that, and we can go from there. But just want to report back that those are at the transfer station for whatever the town desires to do with them.
Okay, great.
So other than that, no, we're just proceeding along, and the next couple of weeks are they're going to be very important for making sure the rest of the project can progress as needed. But yeah, things are still moving, so that's good. But otherwise, that's all my part. If we want to move to Richard and the architect update.
Well, can I just ask one more related to that?
Sure.
You said things are moving, and yes, I can see that. Are you satisfied right now with the way we're moving? Understanding, yes, there have been delivery delays and so forth, and anticipated ones. Are you happy with where we are as the project manager?
Yeah, yes, where we're at, just in general, and And additionally, with regard to procurement things, I mean, in all fronts, I don't think that we're in any sort of bad spot. I'm pleased with how things have progressed, given the schedule for the project, the scope of the project, Newfield, Richard, everything is going reasonably well. Yes.
Thanks.
Okay, then Richard, we'll turn over to you.
Okay, great. Thanks very much. Good evening, everyone. I guess I have 4 areas that I'd like to report on. The first is the project status. Right now, Newfield has, through the end of November, billed 20% of the project. And the amount of time that has elapsed is 43%. Not that unusual, but being a worrywart by nature, I do worry about a little bit about the amount of time that's left to finish 80% of the buildings or 95% of the buildings when we get to substantial completion. I think that the pace will pick up. Ordinarily it does. I think this was something that was talked about at the last committee meeting. As more trades people get on the site, you'll see much more activity. Right now, Newfield has been focusing on getting the structure up and then getting the enclosure so that other tradespeople then can work on the inside of the building. So I do expect that pace to pick up, but we'll continue to monitor the rate of billing and the rate of time that has elapsed. Second item I wanted to bring to your attention was the FF&E, furniture, fixtures, and equipment package is now out to bid. Also, the technology package is out to bid. Bids are due on January 19th, and we've already received quite a number of questions from vendors for both of those packages. One addendum has been issued for the furniture and equipment package, and so we do expect there'll be some competitive bidding for both of those packages. Okay, the third item I want to talk about, this is the geothermal issues. So in response to Tony's question, there was a site meeting on December the 14th. Our mechanical engineers, Kohler Ronan, were asked to come out to the site. This was started by a question that was posed by Ben Chase of Newfield regarding inspections that may be required for the geothermal components, piping, etc. The building official, Mike Ninto, I think asked that Kohler Ronan come to the site and review what the components are for the geothermal systems. Geothermal systems are not that common an item for officials to be inspecting. So he wanted to make sure, Mike Ninto wanted to make sure that he understood how the system is supposed to work, what components he should be looking at before the system is closed up. So Craig Raza from Kohler Ronan came out, met with Mike Ninto, also the fire marshal Adam Libro was there as well, and I believe Ray Pellerin from Newfield was there as well, and probably the geothermal subcontractor Allied was there as well. And there were 4 items that Kohler Ronan identified as being not compliant with the contract, one of which is that the trenches were backfilled without inspection. 2 of the trenches in particular, trench 4 and trench 7, had not been inspected before they were backfilled. And that does not comply with the specs, so they're going to have to be excavated and then the piping inspected. The second item was that the piping was not placed in sand beds as was specified. They appeared to be in gravel, and there were stones present near some of the piping, so that needs to be corrected as well. The third is that some of the boreholes for the geothermal wells appeared not to have grout completely within them. And in some cases, Kohler Ronan reported that there was sand in the holes. So that needs to be corrected as well. You may recall that their pipe enters the borehole down to the full depth and then comes back up. There's a supply line and a return line. And within that borehole, grout needs to be installed to make sure that there's a positive thermal connectivity between the piping and the surrounding earth. And if it's missing, then you don't get that proper heat transfer. So that needs to be corrected as well. Colorado also observed that some of the pipes were incorrectly sized. If you look at the drawings, they call for specific pipe sizes. For example, 1.5-inch pipe if 2 wells are connected, a 2-inch pipe if 4 wells are connected, 3-inch pipe if more than that. So the size of those pipes need to be corrected as well. So that's what happened on December the 14th. 3 days later, Colorado came back to the site and saw that corrective work was being done. So I think they felt confident that this is manageable. This is something that it's an oops that should have actually been caught, and trying to backfilling of the trenching should not have occurred. The inspection should have happened before backfilling. Maybe Al can report a little bit about that a little bit later, but Colorado feels confident they understand, Newfield understands what needs to be done and the appropriate corrections are being made.
Okay, we have a question from Ryan on, I guess, on the geothermal.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of a question. Maybe it's more of a statement, but I guess it will technically end with a question mark. I did have a chance to talk with Mike Ninto about this today, which I think, as Richard reported, was the 14th, that this originally came to light, and he relayed to me basically everything that Richard just relayed to the group in terms of what his inspection revealed. And I just have to say, I'm heartened to know that I guess it sounds like the correct process has been instituted for subsequent piping that's been installed, and based on that inspection, things were, installed correctly, backfilled properly. But I am not by any stretch, nor would I ever pretend to be a geothermal contractor, so I don't have the technical knowledge or expertise to render, qualified opinions in geothermal work. However, just the sheer litany, I guess, of issues that were discovered, frankly, I find quite alarming for a company that presumably does this, on a large scale professionally, and certainly should know better. As I said to Mike, either excuse number one is we had no idea we were doing it that bad, and that's not comforting or reassuring. It speaks to lack of competence, or we knew full well that this was the wrong way to do it, but we were just doing it anyway, and that doesn't leave you feel very, very good about it. So this is just such a significant component, both from a cost center standpoint, but obviously from the standpoint of the building achieving its net zero goals and energy efficiency goals. So, I want to believe, okay, from this point forward, everything will be done correctly, and we won't, have anything to worry about. But jeepers, it sounds like there's just such a long list of things that I feel like we're going to be snuck by us, and just does not leave me feeling very good or inspire a lot of confidence in me, for me, what's going on. So I guess I look to others for confidence and optimism.
Chris, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not going to give it to you. In fact, I think you took my script. That was just about exactly what I would say, Ryan. I was floored by it. And even things like that the tube wasn't completely filled up. The process seems incredibly obvious there. It makes me wonder if there is grout in these other ones and what the nature of it is. I don't know if that was tested. And I'm actually disappointed that today we don't have somebody who was actually there for any part of the inspection to speak to it. Ray's not here, and nor is anybody else. But I am curious about the reaction of the contractor, the direct response of the contractor, and whether or not they showed any sign of concern, remorse, amazement, or whatever. I mean, maybe Al, you can speak to that, but this is like a major wow. Just as Ryan says, this stuff is buried, and it's it's like anything underground anywhere. Frankly, it's worse underneath the slab to me, but this is pretty crazy. So I'm wanting to know if we have any record or knowledge of what kind of response we got from the so-called professionals.
Al, do you have?
We've had concerns with this contractor for a while. We found out after they started running pipe that the pipe was not approved. It was meant for geothermal, but it wasn't the pipe they submitted, and then the engineer approved. So we had to go through the process of resubmitting that material to get it approved. We did, but we've had concerns with this contractor, and we noticed they had backfilled sections of the pipe. And that's when we contacted the engineer to come out and take a look at it and really give us the information we needed to go back on him. So he is proceeding with the repairs. We're going to take it very slowly with him. He's going to be doing a step, and then we're going to get it inspected. We're not going to bury anything. We're not going to cover anything up. So we just have to keep a close eye on this guy.
Can I ask, and I don't know if maybe we should have had Craig here, but how do you, for the wells where there was sand in there, I mean, how do you tell how far down the sand went, or if there's grout underneath there? Is there any way to figure that out?
You got to pull the pipe. The pipe that's in there now, the two sections of pipe that's looped together, that needs to be pulled out and the hole cleaned out.
And is that planned, or is that something that is doable?
If there's no grout in it, yes, it's doable.
Yeah, Randy, there are vacuum methods and things like that where, that purposely made for sucking up sand and things of that nature. So the tools exist. It's just a matter of going back and putting the grout in that they should have put in the first place. So.
Right.
Yeah, Tony?
What does this do to our schedule?
It doesn't affect schedule.
Okay, Chris McNamara and then Mary.
Al, I know a lot of the job that Ray has, in addition to all of his expertise, is babysitting the various contractors that are there. Do you feel that Ray's got enough support to keep his eye on these guys and everything else going forward?
I do. I think Ray got a little wake up call as well. Just meeting with the engineers out there. So.
Okay, Mary.
All right, so Ryan, you asked for someone to instill some optimism. I'm going to echo Chris Kiefner and say, I don't think I'm that person. And yes, my reaction initially was much like yours. So I have a couple of questions. Tony just asked, how does it affect our timeline? My second follow-up to that would be, what does it do to the cost? And if we're looking for somebody to instill some optimism, are you that guy, Al? Or is there no optimism to be found here?
I hope so. Like I said, we're taking it very slowly with this company. They're out of Maryland. They're a fairly good size outfit, but they're doing things that they shouldn't be doing. So yeah, we just need to make sure that we check and double check each step along the way and have it inspected by the professionals and let them say, yes, okay, you can bury that, backfill it.
So what does this, that we have to go back and fix and dig up and repair, what does that do to cost for us?
That's not a town issue.
Yeah, that's not a cost that the town would bear or Newfield would bear. It's the contractor's fault. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, Steve and then Chris Kiefner.
So are we going to be going through the wells one at a time, making sure each one of them is grouted?
Yes.
Okay. And we will be checking the ones that have sand, that the sand's evacuated?
That's correct. Yeah.
Great, excellent. And do we, have to worry about temperature with these wells being exposed as the temperature dips? Does any of this need to be covered for any reason, or we're okay for now?
Yeah, we're okay. There's no water or anything in any of the bores, so.
Okay, great.
There's really nothing that weather will interfere with.
Okay, Chris Keebner.
We asked Al, Adam, if Ray, is Ray enough for the moment on this? What's your opinion?
I think that is probably accurate in the sense that, when Ray's got the sea of contractors coming in, like any superintendent, there's always going to be some subcontractors that are better than others, that are more organized than others, that are better supported than others. And sometimes it just takes a bit for them to understand where their focus needs to be drawn to. So for the past several weeks, heavy focus has been on the concrete work and the steel work. So now, especially as that work tends to sort itself out and organize, there can be some targeted focus towards resolving these geothermal issues. Moreover, it's not just a Ray observing them as they're doing the work. We're now into the phase of inspection, which is what I would offer as the sort of comfort, if you will, in that it's no longer just a series of work done by the subcontractor, and then you find out that they've been doing it wrong all along. Now we're to the point of, to Steve's question, looking and confirming and checking every bore and every trench and making sure it was backfilled and it was caught. So now they're under the microscope, and it doesn't get released until it meets the specifications in the plans. So maybe they had a worker that was having, a rough month, or they were understaffed or what have you. All that becomes immaterial when it comes to the inspection, and it doesn't pass until it meets muster. And so they need to keep doing the work. And if they can't do the work, then, Newfield will have to resolve that. But insofar as moving forward from where we're at right now, there's the plan in place. My understanding is that there's already been some uncovering and some rework and some check marks on some of the stuff they've already done. So that's where we go moving forward. And I think Ray, he's not alone in this. Collier's field team is out there looking at this. Me and Joe when we were out there earlier this week, we talked to the foreman, asking what he was doing. So there's more than just Ray's eyes on this.
Great. I am curious in terms of Ryan's initial, is there any hope behind this? One hope that I would have, something that would give me hope rather, is that personnel from whatever it is, Geothermal, said, "Oh my God, I can't believe the guys did that," or anything. Have we got any did Mike say anything to you, Ryan, Al? Has anybody said anything to you of like, "Oh boy, whoops, we screwed up, sorry, we're going to write this"? Are we getting any of that? Or are we just getting like, okay,
I can at front, which is, second or third hand information by the time I'm hearing, from Mike, but it didn't sound like the day of the initial inspection that there was a lot of accountability there. I think when Ray, from Newfield was brought into this discussion, it sounds like, he was appalled by what he saw and things got pretty animated. But from what I understand, and I'm not sure what the right job title is, if it's, construction foreman, project manager, whatever on the geothermal contractor side, but it didn't sound like, whoever was in charge there was, basically saying, "Oh, you're absolutely right. This is not the way we do it." And we're going to bend over backwards to remedy it and kind of see that quality customer service kick in. It sounds like there was a lot of pushback and attitude and, not a lot of owning the mistakes, which again, that kind of compounds the problem and doesn't leave me feel, I know we're going to be watching things like a hawk. And I guess it's, we're going to have to make our own optimism because we're not going to leave anything to chance, obviously. But, and I understand that moving on, swapping out contractors is not really an option from a timeline standpoint, I'm sure. But, you can pick your analogy anytime you have somebody that, seems to show total disregard for doing something the right way. It doesn't exactly leave you feeling good that you're left in a position where you kind of have to give them a second chance.
Is there a way to validate the performance of any of the individual wells? Or do you just, you tie it all together and then you kind of hope that it matches what you were expecting?
I can ask Colorado to give us their opinion on that. Also, Craig Raza said that he is going to be monitoring it carefully going forward.
I know, Richard, we did have the test wells. There was a report and feedback done there. So I would think, hopefully, and again, I'm not an expert on geothermal wells, but I would think Kohler-Ronan, we'd be able to follow that same protocol for the test wells and the reporting mechanism there to check each one of the wells. And I guess, just looking at, trying to look at the positive in a very bad situation, the good thing is at this point, it's not critical path at this time. There's a lot of work that needs to be done in the building to keep the building enclosed, and that's really when the heavy time is going to start. So, from a staffing standpoint, Ray can really focus on this because, until the steel's up and the roof's on and the building's enclosed, that's when it's really, really going to get busy. If we were at that stage right now, we'd be talking to Al saying, we need additional staffing out there. But now that this has been identified with Richard on top of it, our field reps now overseeing it, the local official, and certainly Al and the new field team, we've got time. So that's the only good news here is we have time to make sure that these wells are constructed, tested, and completed properly. So when it does come time to bring those online, everything will be functioning properly.
Okay. Other questions specifically about this? Yeah, Chris?
This may not be our thing, but our direct purview. But Al, we're approving a bunch of money for you for Newfield, or said to be today, planned to be today. And there's no detail within that. And again, I don't know whether that's our thing or we just deal with you and forget the rest, forget the details. But do you withhold payment for this kind of thing? How does this part work?
I can jump in on that if you don't mind, Chris, and then Al can continue. So the requisitions, and I have a full requisition here in front of me, is submitted, a draft of this is submitted to us as well as to Colliers at the same time. Their folks go through it, we go through it. And when this came up on the geothermal wells, that's the very first thing I looked at. How much money are we paid the geothermal contractor? And according to this requisition, they've been paid 60%. 60%. So they have not been paid 40% still. So I believe there's sufficient money to still continue to hold until this issue is corrected.
That's correct.
And to that, to expound on that, so Richard and I, when we had phone conversations, or Jeff and I had phone conversations about each month's bill in terms of assuring alignment. So Richard and I spoke to that same point about the amount expended to the geothermal company, and for them and for every trade, we don't recommend approval of any amount of money, and Richard and Jeff don't certify funds that we don't think make sense to pay out for each of the various trades. So if they don't pass their inspections, they don't get paid for that amount of work moving forward. Now, in terms of Al and the subcontractors, he can speak more to that on that end, but I just want to expound on that there's, like with most of these things, both the architect team and Colliers looks at each one of these items.
That's fine. Al, you don't need to respond unless you want to add something else, but I'm satisfied.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Adam, I believe that the billings that are approved for the geotech are just through 65% of his total cost. So, we've been very cautious there. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think Richard, it's 60 or 65. I think Richard just looked at it and said 60. I'd have to pull out the backup for it, but and that I don't know that even includes retainage on top of that too. So there's a large amount of monies that's still left to be paid to them.
Yeah, that does not include the 5% retainers. So there's also additional 5% retainers that you're holding.
Right.
Thank you very much.
So going forward, can we get a specific update on the geothermal progress as we go along for each of our meetings?
Absolutely, yeah. This until this item's resolved, I don't see this every single meeting will have some sort of update. Hopefully they go away quickly because they've resolved the issues and we move on. But as long as this is an issue, I don't see this getting swept under the rug by any means. We'll need to discuss it and make sure we're all aligned on it.
Okay, thanks. Chris?
When we talked about the pressure testing of the system and testing it prior to going online, I'm pretty sure there's a way to pressure test it before you cover it up even. And I don't know if that's being done section by section or that has to be done when the entire system is covered. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Sure, I'll start, and then if Al wants to chime in, that would be fine too. So, and Scott alluded to this before, we had test wells done for the geothermal system. You may recall very early on, that was an early phase of work. And that the purpose of those test wells was to determine what the conductivity rate was in each of the wells. So pressure testing is only one part of it to make sure that there's no compromise in the tubing. The other is conductivity. So whether we test each well individually and do conductivity tests or whether we do them in series, but we should get the same kind of BTU exchange in the wells consistently to meet what our expectations were. And that will be another indication of the quality of the wells that were installed.
Yeah, that would give us a little bit more confidence, I think, if we knew that if that was happening. And because they even tied in some of the fractured wells, I understand. So, you know, and I don't know what that will do to the conductivity and the ratings. And so anyway, I will encourage very thorough assessment of the wells and the piping. Okay. Richard, was there something else you're going to bring up as well?
Yes, one more thing. Update on the light fixtures. We're still waiting for some resubmittals. Al, maybe you can help me with this. In response to Sullivan Benson, the subcontractor's request that we reconsider their submissions, we did do that, and we approved most of the fixtures. So in fact, I think out of 40 odd interior light fixtures, we approved all of them except for 6. And we provided some alternative manufacturers that we would even consider that the subcontractor could provide. And out of the 15 or 18 exterior light fixtures, we approved all of them except for 2. So we accepted some substitutions. In fact, we accepted the lion's share of the substitutions, and now we're waiting for resolution on the alternatives. And I'm not sure if that's been submitted yet, Al, or if that's still in process.
It's still being priced with the suppliers. I expect to have something back probably next week.
Okay, so with the new year, we can make a resolution here about getting these light fixtures all settled as quickly as we can.
Okay.
Okay, Chris?
Richard, could you just clarify the numbers aren't totally clear to me in terms of what does that mean? And I don't know how many thousand fixtures there are in the entire building. What does this number of things that are still in the air mean in terms of percentage of fixtures, or maybe it's area lit? I don't know what the metric would be, but where does this really, I mean, is this bathroom fixtures are the ones we're arguing about? Is it all the classrooms we're arguing about? Or is it all the hallways we're arguing about? I mean, is it a lot of square footage or is it a little? What's going on? Or with money?
So on the interior fixtures, probably the best way to describe it is the fixtures that are in contention are classroom light fixtures and corridor light fixtures primarily. So that's a lot of fixtures. Other fixtures that we're not arguing about, that's your word, arguing, we're not arguing about are other kinds of fixtures. Bathroom fixtures are fine. Their proposed substitute fixture is fine. A lot of the office fixtures that they proposed are fine. They're equivalent. So it's really classrooms and corridors primarily. As far as exterior fixtures are concerned, the issues are mostly around the two fixture types. One fixture type is mounted to the underside of the exterior canopy. This is the canopy shelter that's in front of the building that's built out of timber. There are fixtures that need to be mounted on the underside, actually fastened to the wood beams and are exposed. And so the size of those particular fixtures was critical. And so we haven't gotten a resubmittal from the.
So to go back to the idea of a metric, it sounds to me like it's 75% of the floor area of the building is still up in the air. That's my number, not yours. What's the budget amount that's still up in the air? In other words, what percentage of the budget for lighting is still not settled?
I don't have a dollar value on that, I'm sorry. I don't have that kind of a breakdown from the submission.
The original submission we got from the contractor, and that was to swap the whole package, was 90 some odd $1,000. So it's less than that. That would be the maximum. So
Thanks, Al. That's great.
Madison?
Yeah, I had a question. I think we talked about this last month, but, or I'm sorry, 2 weeks ago, but, so what changed as far as the ones that you did approve and the substitutions that they, were asking for? Is it just a different brand? Do you feel like it's sufficient quality? Is it an aesthetic thing? Like what gives to allow you to feel like you could approve what you did?
So one of the things that goes on in this light fixture industry is that there are dealers or brokers or agents is what they call them sometimes, middlemen who represent a number of different manufacturers. And they like to give you a whole bundle of fixtures for the whole project. And so we were trying to get the whole bundle approved initially. And that, I think, became one of the difficulties. We couldn't approve the whole bundle. However, some fixtures were fine. And so we said we would approve the partial submission, and that's what we did, provided that they're willing to break up the bundle and buy fixtures from other middlemen, other dealers, other agencies, rather than relying just on one agency. I think that became the stumbling block. Every agency wants the whole package, and they'll want to sell you who they have the ability to purchase from, rather than shopping from different manufacturers.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of the contract documents, the lighting design package is what's called a basis of design. And so within that concept are performance criteria, how bright it is, materiality, energy efficiency, as well as aesthetics. So this is the concept of what we want. Here's an example. You need to provide something like this. Don't make it 6 feet if it's only 4 feet. Don't make it, super blue light if it's supposed to be warm light. Don't make it the energy hog if it's supposed to be energy efficient. And it needs to meet those criteria. So the changing of the manufacturers is, in effect, to your question, it's a reasonable, reputable manufacturer that provides the same end result. It's just manufacturer A versus manufacturer B is the process for approving one product versus another product.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Thank you, guys.
Mary?
So I know this goes without saying to you, Richard, but I'm going to say it anyway in light of the way we started everything tonight. We know that overhead fluorescent lighting has been detrimental to a lot of kids in their comfort level, in their ability to focus and concentrate, and headaches. And you saw in your original tours of our buildings, teachers who tried to fix that with diffusing cloths that they put over lamps that they brought into their room. I know you're aware of all of that. I'm happy that you're on our team and you're not going to let any of that happen. But again, after starting tonight's meeting the way we did, I feel like if I'm thinking it, I'm going to say it out loud and not say a month from now, yeah, we were worried about that a long time ago. So there, just had to get that out. Thanks.
All right, there are no fluorescent light fixtures in the fixtures that are being approved. These are all highly efficient LED fixtures which have the proper lighting spectrum. And in fact, the color of the lamps or the color of the light that's being emitted is one of the criteria that we looked at when we reviewed the fixtures. And so, no fluorescent fixtures.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions for Richard? Chris?
This is on a topic he didn't bring up because I guess it's already somewhat been settled and it's in for approval. But the landscape piece that you're getting the landscapers to come and redo things because of the trees. Okay, so I'm just curious on this. You had a 10% fee on that. I'm curious, what is that? I thought the standard fee for architects was 7%, but that may just be because I'm older than I think I am. But can you clarify sort of where we should expect to pay fees when we get things done through you and where we shouldn't? And then also in general, what your typical fees are?
So there is a markup on a sub-consultant's work if it's done through us. If you contract with them directly, there will be no markup. But our insurance rates are determined upon gross billings. So when we get reviewed by insurance companies and they audit our books, they'll say, oh, your gross revenues were such and such. And so your premium is based upon that. So it's a burden on us to carry a sub-consultant additional fee without having the ability to mark it up as well.
And Chris,
to cover that overhead.
Yeah, and Chris, just to let you know, Adam and I, anytime we get one of these ad service requests, we review the contractual obligations, and the contract does stipulate 10% markup with these types of changes for the architect on his consultants that he's carrying. So that is appropriate, and it is within the contractual requirements. And then Adam and I did, at first blush, it does seem to be a considerable amount of money.
Did I say that? I don't think I said that, Scott.
No, but I can read between the lines. I got my good contacts in today. So, we did look at the hours and the structure of the hours of it. And, after discussing it a little bit more and bouncing it around, we do think, knowing what Richard and his team is going to do and really looking at sight lines from some of these residential neighborhoods and really tailoring the additional plantings and trees, both deciduous and evergreen, to make sure that not only do we match the aesthetic of the building, and again, I'm talking about what we're going to be looking for as part of, if you go ahead with this approval, but to really make sure that we're addressing this for the neighbors, to make sure that proper screening is provided. So, with that, we felt this isn't just a quick effort of pulling out a plan and taking a Sharpie and popping some dots on a plan and saying, put trees here. We're anticipating that there's going to be quite a bit more thought to it, and that Richard is going to demonstrate that with the plans that he brings forward.
I actually do want to say, I didn't think it was unreasonable, but at all. And given the amount of time you'd spent on this before and the amount of time I'm forcing on you right now, but it did make me curious what the standards were and if they are different in other areas. I mean, it's not even clear to me how your rates come about, but this isn't the meeting to discuss it. And I'm not arguing with them.
It's right, but yeah, and again, just so you know, it is contractual. We've reviewed the contract. It meets the contract requirements for his markup. So
that's great.
Okay, and if there's nothing more for Richard, then we can go on to a report from Al.
Okay, I'm going to share the screen. Okay, so the first photo here is of the entire building pad. You'll see on the left, the roof decking is being installed now. This picture is a couple of days old, but they finished up the roof deck here and they're working over in this area here on section A. The steel along this edge is just about complete. This section here gets the glue lam beams, which are coming next Tuesday. So this whole area gets glue lammed and this area over here gets glue lams. We did receive the trusses for the gym, which came in, I believe, on Tuesday. So that's good. They're here, they're stored. Next we have, you can see the pump house foundation is complete. They're backfilling that now. And we'll start the under slab utilities next week. We have our heating units here and here, our propane tanks to heat these two sections of building. And those have been hooked up, inspected, and they are operating right now. Backfill is pretty much complete along the gymnasium. Let's see what else we got here. Take a little time to boot up here. All right, so you can see on this photo here the lower level of B. We've installed the exterior wall metal studs, and we put a reinforced polyethylene barrier there to try to keep the heat in. We do have the Dens glass sheathing did arrive on site this week, so they'll begin sheathing the walls as well. We have heat that's going in here now, so we plan on pouring the other half of B to slab on deck next week, and that will allow us to frame the second floor walls, which should be starting the week after next. So you'll start seeing the structure starting to take shape. And this is the beam that was signed by all the kids and faculty, and we had a little ceremony on site for that. And so that will be a beam that will be exposed in one of the mechanical rooms. And I think the kids had a blast on that. So some other things I just want to go over with you.
Al, before you go back to other things, can you just show us from the aerial view where that beam is?
Yeah. It's right here.
That is it. Okay.
This little diagonal beam right here. Yep.
Thank you.
Yep, no problem.
And that will be exposed in a mechanical room. Is that right?
That's correct. Yep. So in the short term, finishing up steel in A, get the glue lam set, get the roof decking in A complete, and then we can move to the gym. You should see a lot of work is going to start happening in area B, especially when we get the exterior walls up on the slab on deck. So that really is going to start moving here pretty soon. Interior walls, rough-in, the roofing, all the roofing material is on site or being stored, and that should be out. I would say the week after next, probably. And that's the critical part. That's the next critical part. Once we get a roof on, we're pretty much home free. If we get any delays on the roof, that will be a problem. Yeah, we do have the heat set up. If we do get snow, we should be able to melt any snow on the decking with heaters. So overall, it's been a challenge. We're trying to work around the problems and do what we can with what's available. But I feel better now that we have the temporary heat installed in the bottom section closed up. Once we pour the slab on deck in B next week, it opens up the lower level slab on grade, which are just about ready to pour as well. So I believe the week after next, we'll probably pour that entire lower level of B as well. So that opens up a lot of work. So,
just don't let CMTA see your sheathing there.
CMTA.
the energy people, don't let them see your walls, your temporary walls.
Oh,
It's not very energy efficient.
yeah. That's about it for what I have.
Al, one thing, that is all just, what is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 of those, I forget what those kind of beams are called in the gym. That's it?
Oh, the bar joist. No, there's more outside the gym that were stacked up over here. I don't know if, no. This is only about half of them.
Oh, good. Okay.
The other half are outside.
Okay, other questions for Al? Okay, if you've been watching on the camera, and there's an awful lot of activity going on, and I mean, the steel is going up, it seems to me to be very quickly. I mean, they really roll once they're going. So that's great. Okay, and then nothing else for Al? Okay, thank you, Al, for that report.
Thank you. Yep, have a good weekend, everyone, and a good holiday.
Thank you. You too. Okay, forthcoming project updates.
Yes, so Richard spoke to one of them already insofar as the fixtures, furnitures, and equipment and technology packages have been put out to bid already. So those are up and receiving interest from the various vendors and prospective bidders. In addition to that, after the new year, the intersection modification work, there's some widening and reconfiguring of the intersection between the Warrenville Road and
195.
right. That'll be put out to bid in January at the beginning of the month to get that work started. I'm sorry, to get the procurement work started in anticipation of work later in 2022 when UConn is out. The other item in this section would be if there's any other discussion or if the committee wanted to entertain a vote on the additional services for Richard's contract for the tree buffer design work.
Chris? You're muted, but I think I can read your lips, but you should probably unmute and.
I said, I move we approve it if it's the right time to do it.
Okay, we have a motion to approve. So this is the amendment to add the buffer plantings, and this would be for work by Richter and Segan. And so I think, I don't know if there's any other discussion. Oh, we have a motion. We have a second for the motion. We'll do it right. Okay, thank you, Madison. Any other questions or discussion? Okay, so then all in favor of approving the amendments, this would be Amendment 6 for the extra services by Richter and Segan for the buffer plantings. So we have a motion, we have a second. All in favor, give me a sign. Any opposed or any abstentions? Okay. All right, Chris?
Randy, I'm not sure when the time is for this, if there is one specifically given, but in some of the photographs that came from Collier's visits, when we saw the underground, the utilities, under slab utilities and the rocks and so the sizes of the rocks and so forth, that was being done by BB, it just made me wonder again, is this what is going on when nobody's looking anyway? I mean, what's the deal with that? And I was also curious, a simpler question, why is it sometimes the ABS, the black pipe, and sometimes the PVC, the white pipe? Why is one used versus another?
I can speak to the soils and things. So when you see some of those photos and you see some of the larger rocks and what have you, all of those get the same sort of inspection work on a pipe basis. You know, the bedding gets inspected, if there's pressure test requirements get inspected. So all those get systematically done. So in the case of the geothermal, it didn't pass muster, and that's what triggered the issue. But the same criteria goes for each portion of the slab and the site. And so sometimes when there's backfill, there's inappropriate material, and we have the geotech inspector and the materials inspectors on site that flag that, and then they put it to the side and get rid of it if it doesn't meet the
But wait
criteria.
a second, that's the sort of thing where I would just think the operator would say, oh, this isn't the way we do things here, or with BB or whatever. That's what I don't get, is that they think it's okay to do and has to wait for an inspector to come around and say, oh, no, we don't do that. Really, what's going on? Why is it that they would even do that if it's known to not be okay? Or is it not known to not be okay? Do we have standards that are unusually high?
Each project has standards. In some instances, it might be the operator doesn't know because they're just focused on operating and they don't pay credence to the criteria of the soil or the gradations or what have you. So it is a dance, but that's why if every contractor did everything perfectly, there would be no need for inspections and testing and that sort of thing. So it's, to your point, if you're a skilled craftsman, you would know everything there is to know about what you're doing. But in general, the quality of the work thus far with the project hasn't been of atrocious quality or anything to that effect. And when there has been things that have been deficient, like there are on every job, there's always work that's sometimes doesn't pass muster or sometimes isn't done appropriately. That's why you have the inspections and testing to catch it.
Okay. Richard, do you know about the difference in the black pipe, white pipe?
I don't. I can certainly ask Kohler on it, but it might be that one is a waste line and the other isn't. I'm guessing. So I'd have to look at it more closely.
At times it could be compressive strength as well, depending on what the pipe's being used for, whether it's just a gravity drain line or the pipe may have a different function or use. So yeah, you'll see different colored pipes, and typically those have different compressive strengths.
Okay. All right. Oh, yeah, go ahead, Chris.
I'm sorry, I did have one more, and it's about the bent bolts. Unless, is that coming up? Are we going to be talking about that? I'm curious how that kind of thing happens and how that's fixed and who pays for it and what the fix is.
Yeah, these are anchor bolts in foundations, I believe you're referring to. This does happen. Anchor bolts sometimes get damaged as other work is progressing. Steel is delivered, for example. Sometimes bolts are slightly off where they need to be. And the fix is to cut them, re-drill new holes, insert new bolts. It's a pain in the neck to do after the fact, but it does happen. It's repairable.
And those
it's a reasonably frequent occurrence on a site where you'll have, if there was a site that had no bolts that ever were out of place or got smacked by a piece of equipment that kind of got buried, that'd be a rare occasion that a project didn't have anything of that nature. So these types of requests for repairs and remediation, they get flagged, they get tagged by the inspectors or the contractors themselves sometimes. And then repairs are issued through the RFI process. So it's a known thing. It's, in terms of cost, there's no cost to the school for that. It's needs to be installed appropriately, and if it's bent and broken, similar to the geothermal, the subcontractor needs to make it right. Or if there's a discussion amongst the new field contractors, that's for Al to mediate. But insofar as the town's concerned, we're not paying for the bent bolt that Randy didn't go out there and kick it and bend it. So
it may be just a question of, we don't tell them whether they should install the bolts before they place the concrete, or we should drill holes in the concrete and then set new bolts in grout. We don't tell them which is, either is acceptable. So the people who installing or required to install the bolts may say, well, you know what, we'll take a chance. We'll put the bolts in before the concrete is poured. And if there's a defective one, we'll replace it. I mean, it could be a simple thing like that.
The fix is that they get blessed by a structural engineer or someone that knows.
That's correct. That's correct. The fix has to be approved and inspected.
Okay. So then that brings us to our project invoices. And that was in the packet. I don't know, Al,
Yes.
Adam, you pull up the summary.
Yeah, I can do that. All right, so I should be sharing the summary here. So it's the monthly invoices from CES, Colliers, Independent Testing Labs, Richard, the architect, Weston and Sampson for our stormwater, and Newfield's pay application for a total of just over $2 million total.
Okay, are there questions on this? Or is there a motion regarding approving these invoices? Chris?
I move that we approve the monthly invoices on the statement of 12/23/21 for the total of $2,034,558.01.
Okay, we have the motion to approve these invoices. Is there a second? Steve? Okay, any other questions or discussion? Then all in favor of approving these invoices, please give me a sign. Any opposed or abstentions? Okay. That then completes our agenda for this evening. Thank you for taking time to come to a meeting. I know it's a busy time for a lot of you. And at this time, I would take a motion to adjourn. Chris, thank you. And second, Mary. Then if you approve, you can sign out. And happy holidays, everyone.
Thank you,
Happy
Randy.
holidays, everyone.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Days.
Holidays.
Randy,
Stay healthy.
which Chris did the motion to adjourn? I didn't see.
Oh, Chris Kiefner.
Chris, okay.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Happy holidays.
Goodbye.
Right.
Bye-bye.